Hey, let me ask you something real quick. Imagine you leave everything behind your home, your family, your language, everything you've ever known. You pack whatever fits in a bag, sometimes not even that, and you make a journey that most people wouldn't survive. You cross oceans, deserts, jungles, and borders. You face violence, hunger, extortion, and death at every single step. And then, after all of that, after surviving things that would break most human beings, you finally arrive. You set foot on American soil, and instead of safety, instead of the chance you risked everything for, you are met with detention centers, deportation orders, and a political system that can't even agree on whether you deserve to be here. That is the reality for hundreds of thousands of Haitians in America right now. And if you think this story doesn't affect you, if you think this is just a distant political debate happening in Washington while your life goes on unchanged, then you need to watch this video until the very end. Because what is happening to Haitians in America in 2026 is not just a Haitian story. It is a story about who America is, what America stands for, and what the future of U.S. immigration policy looks like for every single person who has ever dreamed of a better life on this side of the world. Welcome to US Visa Explained. If you're new here, this is the channel where we break down the most complex, most confusing, and most important immigration stories in a way that actually makes sense. No jargon, no political spin, just the facts, the context, and the human reality behind the headlines. And today, we are going deep into one of the most controversial, most misunderstood, and most urgent immigration stories of 2026, Haitians in America. We're going to cover everything: where Haitians are coming from and why, what's happening to Haitian communities already living in the United States, what the US government is doing about it, what the law actually says, and what the future looks like, not just for Haitians, but for the entire US immigration system. This is going to be a long one, but I promise you, every single minute is worth it. So get comfortable and let's start from the beginning. To understand what's happening right now, you have to understand Haiti. Not the Haiti of cliches and charity campaigns, the real Haiti. Because if you don't understand the country, you cannot understand the people who are leaving it. And if you don't understand the people, you cannot have an honest conversation about immigration policy. Haiti is the first Black republic in the history of the world. In 1804, enslaved Africans did something that had never been done before. They rose up, defeated one of the most powerful armies on earth, and declared their freedom. That is an extraordinary achievement, a world historical moment, and the world made Haiti pay for it. France, the colonial power that Haiti liberated itself from, demanded reparations. Not the other way around. Haiti had to pay France for the loss of its enslaved people. That debt took Haiti over a century to pay off. And while Haiti was paying that debt, the rest of the world was developing, industrializing, investing. Haiti was draining its resources to compensate the people who had enslaved its ancestors. That is the foundation. That is where the story starts. And if you want to understand why Haiti is where it is today, you cannot skip that part, because centuries of economic exploitation, foreign intervention, political instability, and natural disaster don't happen in a vacuum. They happen to a country that was systematically undermined from the moment it dared to be free. Fast forward to the 21st century. Haiti has been hit by earthquakes, hurricanes, political assassinations, cholera outbreaks brought in by foreign aid workers, gang violence that has spiraled completely out of control, and an economy that simply cannot provide for its people. In 2021, the Haitian president was assassinated in his own home. Let that sink in. The president of the country was murdered inside the presidential residence. Since then, gangs have taken control of large portions of Port-au-Prince, the capital city. They control roads, neighborhoods, hospitals, schools. People cannot get food, cannot get medicine, cannot get their children to school safely. Women are being subjected to horrific violence. Men are being recruited by force or killed if they refuse. Children are being robbed of every possible future. This is not a situation where people are leaving because they want a nicer life. This is a situation where people are leaving because staying means death. And when death is the alternative, people will do whatever it takes to survive. They will walk through the Darien Gap, one of the most dangerous stretches of jungle on Earth, where people drown in rivers, get attacked by armed groups, and die from dehydration and disease. They will pay everything they have to smugglers who may or may not actually help them. They will put their children on their backs and keep walking, because walking is the only option left. That is who is coming to America. That is who we are talking about when we talk about Haitians at the border. Now let's talk about the numbers, because context matters. The Haitian population in the United States has grown significantly over the past decade. As of 2026, estimates suggest there are somewhere between 700,000 and over 1 million Haitians and Haitian-Americans living in the United States. These are not all recent arrivals. Many Haitian communities in the U.S. have deep roots: Miami, New York, Boston, Orlando, Chicago. These cities have had Haitian populations for decades. People who built lives, raised families, started businesses, contributed to their communities in ways that are often invisible in the political debate. But in recent years, those numbers have been supplemented by new arrivals in unprecedented waves. The 2021 earthquake, the political chaos following the presidential assassination, and the escalating gang violence triggered a massive migration movement. In 2021, tens of thousands of Haitians were encountered at the Del Rio Bridge in Texas, creating one of the most dramatic and disturbing immigration scenes in recent American history. Images of border agents on horseback using whips, or what appeared to be whips, against Haitian migrants went viral around the world. The Biden administration was criticized from all sides, from the left for the treatment of migrants, from the right for the scale of the border crossings. And then came the expulsions. Under Title 42, a public health authority that had been used since the Trump administration nominally due to COVID, the U.S. expelled thousands of Haitians back to Haiti. People who had traveled for months, survived unimaginable dangers, were put on planes and sent back to the country they had fled. Some of them had not been to Haiti in years. Some had no family left there. Some were sent to a country they barely recognized because gang violence had transformed it beyond recognition. That was 2021. Now it's 2026, and the situation has not improved. If anything, it has gotten worse in some respects and more complicated in others. And that complexity is what we need to really dig into now. Let's talk about temporary protected status, because this is one of the most critical legal concepts in the Haitian immigration story. Temporary protected status, or TAPS, is a designation given by the U.S. government to nationals of countries that are experiencing ongoing armed conflict, environmental disasters, or other extraordinary conditions that make it unsafe for their citizens to return. Haitians have had TPS designations multiple times, but the history of that designation is a story of political manipulation and uncertainty that has left hundreds of thousands of people in a perpetual state of limbo. After the devastating 2010 earthquake, Haiti was granted TPS. People who were already in the U.S. could register, get work authorization, and live without the immediate threat of deportation. But TPS is, by its very name, temporary. It has to be renewed, and the decision to renew it is a political one, not purely a humanitarian one. During the Trump administration's first term, the decision was made to end TPS for Haitians, along with several other nationalities. The argument was that conditions in Haiti had improved enough that people could return safely. Advocates, immigration lawyers, and human rights organizations pushed back hard, arguing that Haiti was in no condition to absorb the return of hundreds of thousands of people. The fight went to the courts, and for years TAPS holders lived in uncertainty, not knowing from one court ruling to the next whether they would be allowed to stay or forced to leave. As of 2026, the TPS situation remains extremely tense. The current political environment in Washington has made the renewal and expansion of TPS for Haitians deeply contested. There are hundreds of thousands of Haitians who have been in the United States for years, sometimes decades, who have built lives here, whose children were born here and are American citizens, and whose entire existence in this country hangs on whether a government official decides to check a box. Think about what that means in human terms. You have someone who has been living in the US for 10 or 15 years, they have a job, they pay taxes, they have kids in school, they have a mortgage. And every time the government reviews their status, they have to sit and wonder, is this the time they tell me I have to leave? Is this the time my American-born children watch their parent get deported to a country they barely remember? That is the reality of TPs. That is what we mean when we talk about the critical role of U.S. immigration policy. Now let's talk about what is happening politically in 2026, because the political context is everything. Immigration has been the defining political battleground in the United States for the past decade, and Haitian immigration has been at the center of some of the most heated moments in that debate. The debate about Haitians in America is often less about actual policy and more about politics. In 2024 and into 2026, Haitian immigrants became a focal point of political attacks that were widely condemned as racist and factually baseless. Claims were made about Haitian immigrants engaging in criminal behavior, including claims that were so outlandish and so demonstrably false that even local officials in the affected areas publicly pushed back. But the damage was done. The political narrative had been set, and for millions of Americans, their impression of Haitian immigrants was shaped not by facts, but by political fear-mongering. This matters enormously for policy. When the public perception of a group is distorted, it becomes politically easier to enact harsher policies toward that group. And that is exactly what has happened. In 2026, the U.S. has seen increased deportation flights to Haiti, tighter restrictions on asylum claims, and an overall hardening of the immigration enforcement environment that has fallen disproportionately on Haitian communities. Let's talk about deportations, because this is one of the most consequential and least discussed aspects of the current situation. Deporting someone to Haiti right now is not simply sending them back to a country they came from. It is, in many cases, sending them into a war zone. Gang control in Haiti is not a metaphor. It is a literal reality. The Haitian National Police are outgunned and outmanned. The government has essentially lost control of significant parts of the country. International efforts to stabilize the situation, including a Kenyan-led security mission, have faced enormous difficulties and have not yet succeeded in turning the tide. When Haitian deportees land in Port-au-Prince, they often have no support network, no home to go to, and in some cases, no safe way out of the airport without encountering gang members who prey on deportees as a source of cash. Human rights organizations have documented cases of deportees being kidnapped, extorted, or killed shortly after their return. The U.S. government is aware of these conditions, and the decision to deport people into those conditions is not a neutral bureaucratic act. It is a moral and political choice with life or death consequences. But the political and legal reality is complicated. The United States has the legal authority to deport people who do not have valid immigration status. That is not in dispute. The question is whether and how that authority should be exercised given the conditions in the receiving country. And that question sits right at the intersection of immigration law, foreign policy, human rights, and domestic politics. Let's also talk about the asylum system, because understanding asylum is essential to understanding what Haitians are trying to do when they come to the U.S. and why the system often fails them. Asylum is a legal protection given to people who can demonstrate that they have a well-founded fear of persecution based on their race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. It is enshrined in both U.S. law and international law. It is not a favor that the government grants, it is a legal right. But the asylum system in the United States is overwhelmed. There are hundreds of thousands of pending cases. The wait times are measured in years, sometimes decades, and the process is extraordinarily complex. To successfully win asylum, you typically need a lawyer. But there is no right to a free lawyer in immigration court the way there is in criminal court. So many asylum seekers show up alone, without representation, in a legal proceeding they don't understand, in a language they may not speak fluently, and they are expected to make a legally coherent case for why they should be protected. The odds are stacked against them from the start. And for Haitians specifically, there are additional challenges. The gang violence that is driving so many people out of Haiti does not always neatly fit into the categories that asylum law recognizes. If you are fleeing a hurricane or an earthquake, that is not traditionally recognized as grounds for asylum. If you are fleeing generalized gang violence, it is very difficult to argue under current legal standards that you are being targeted because of one of the 5 protected grounds. Immigration judges have inconsistently ruled on cases involving gang violence, and the lack of clear legal standards means that whether a Haitian asylum seeker wins or loses their case can depend enormously on which judge they happen to get. This is the system that Haitians are navigating in 2026, a system that was not designed for the scale or the nature of the current crisis. A system that is under-resourced, politically contested, and often fundamentally unjust in its outcomes. Let's shift now to talk about Haitian communities in America, because this story is not only about borders and policy. It is also about people, about what life looks like for Haitians who have made it to the United States and are trying to build something here. Haitian-Americans are an extraordinarily diverse community. They include recent arrivals still adjusting to a new country and a new language, and they include people whose families have been in the U.S. for multiple generations. They include professionals, doctors, nurses, lawyers, teachers, engineers, and they include people working 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs to send money home to family in Haiti. They include people who are fully documented, people on TPs, people with pending asylum cases, and people who are undocumented. The Haitian-American community has made enormous contributions to the United States. The healthcare industry, particularly in states like Florida and New York, relies heavily on Haitian-American workers. During the COVID pandemic, Haitian-American nurses and healthcare aides were on the front lines, risking their lives to care for others. The home care and elder care industries employ enormous numbers of Haitian-American workers who provide essential services to the elderly and disabled. Haitian communities have built churches, cultural centers, radio stations, restaurants, and small businesses in cities across the country. They have created a piece of Haiti in America, a vibrant, creative, deeply resilient culture that has adapted and thrived even in the face of discrimination and hardship. But that resilience should not be confused with an absence of struggle. Haitian communities face significant challenges. Language barriers remain a major obstacle, particularly for Creole speakers who may not speak English or even French fluently. The Haitian Creole language is not always recognized as a distinct language in bureaucratic settings, creating confusion and delays in everything from immigration proceedings to medical care to school enrollment. There are not enough Haitian Creole interpreters in many of the cities where Haitian immigrants have settled. There is also significant economic hardship. Many Haitian immigrants, especially recent arrivals, are working in low-wage, precarious jobs with no benefits, no sick leave, and no job security. They are often housed in overcrowded conditions, sharing apartments with extended family and community members because housing costs are prohibitive, and they are sending a significant portion of their income back to Haiti in the form of remittances, money that is, in many cases, the only economic lifeline for family members still in the country. The psychological toll is immense. Many Haitian immigrants have experienced trauma, the violence they fled, the dangers of the migration journey, the uncertainty of the immigration process, and the discrimination they face in America. Access to mental health services is limited, and there is a cultural stigma around mental health in many Haitian communities that makes it even harder for people to seek help. And then there is the political climate. The anti-immigrant rhetoric that has dominated American politics in recent years has had a direct and tangible impact on Haitian communities. People are afraid to go to work, afraid to drive, afraid that a routine traffic stop could end in deportation. Parents are afraid to send their children to school. Community members are afraid to call the police when they experience crime because they worry about what will happen when officers arrive and ask about immigration status. This fear is not irrational. It is based on real experiences and real risks, and it corrodes the social fabric of communities in ways that are hard to measure but impossible to ignore. Now let's talk about the broader policy debate, because that is ultimately what will determine the future for Haitians and for all immigrants in America. The U.S. immigration system is broken. That is not a controversial statement. Almost everyone across the political spectrum agrees on that basic point. Where they disagree is on what broken means and how to fix it. Those on one side argue that the system is broken because it is too permissive. They argue that border security is insufficient, that too many people are crossing illegally, that the asylum system is being abused by people who don't meet the legal standard, and that the presence of large numbers of undocumented immigrants drives down wages, strains public services, and undermines the rule of law. They want stricter enforcement, faster deportations, tighter restrictions on asylum, and a more controlled approach to who gets to come to America. Those on the other side argue that the system is broken because it is too rigid and too cruel. They argue that the asylum process is overwhelmed, not because it is too generous, but because the underlying crises driving migration are not being addressed. They argue that deportation to dangerous countries is immoral and counterproductive. They argue that TPS holders and long-term residents who have built lives in America should have a path to permanent residency and eventually citizenship. They want comprehensive immigration reform that creates legal pathways, addresses the root causes of migration, and treats immigrants with basic human dignity. And then there is a large group of people in the middle who are genuinely uncertain, who understand that there are real costs and real challenges associated with large-scale immigration, who also understand that the people coming are human beings with human stories, who are looking for a policy approach that is both realistic and humane, and who are frustrated that the political debate offers them only two extreme positions and no honest engagement with the complexity in between. In 2026, the chances of comprehensive immigration reform seem remote. The political polarization in Washington is at historic highs. The Republican and Democratic parties are further apart on immigration than they have been in decades, and any serious reform effort would require a degree of bipartisan cooperation that simply does not exist in the current political environment. What does exist is a series of executive actions, court battles, and policy decisions that are shaping the reality on the ground for hundreds of thousands of people. The Biden administration expanded TAPS and parole programs for Haitians, allowing some to enter the U.S. legally and temporarily. The Trump administration has moved to restrict or end many of those programs. The courts are constantly intervening, blocking some actions, allowing others. The result is a policy environment that is chaotic, unpredictable, and deeply anxiety-inducing for the people caught in the middle of it. There is also the question of root causes. One of the most persistent critiques of American immigration policy is that it focuses entirely on the symptom, people crossing the border, without addressing the disease, the conditions that force people to leave in the first place. The U.S. government has historically been deeply involved in Haitian affairs, often in ways that have contributed to instability rather than resolved it. Foreign aid, political interventions, support for corrupt governments, and the imposition of economic policies that benefited outside interests at the expense of Haitian people. All of this has shaped the Haiti that people are fleeing today. A truly comprehensive approach to Haitian migration would have to include a serious, sustained, long-term investment in Haitian stability. Not the kind of short-term aid that flows in after a natural disaster and then disappears. Not the kind of political maneuvering that installs friendly governments without regard for whether those governments are actually democratic or accountable. But genuine, patient, humble engagement with the Haitian people and Haitian institutions to build something durable. That is a much harder conversation than arguing about who gets to cross the border. But it is the conversation that actually matters. So where does this leave us? What is the future of Haitians in America? What is the future of U.S. immigration policy? The honest answer is that nobody knows. The political situation is too volatile, the legal landscape too uncertain, the humanitarian crisis too severe for anyone to make confident predictions. What we can say is this: the decisions that American policymakers make in the next few years will have consequences that last for generations. They will determine whether hundreds of thousands of Haitians who have built lives in America are able to stay and continue contributing, or whether they are uprooted and sent back to uncertainty and danger. They will determine whether the asylum system is reformed into something that actually works, or whether it continues to collapse under the weight of its own dysfunction. They will determine what kind of message the United States sends to the world about whether it is still a country that believes in human dignity, in refuge, in the possibility of a better life. These are not abstract questions. They are the questions that Haitian families are asking right now. In homes in Miami and Brooklyn and Orlando and Boston, there are parents wondering whether they will be here next year to see their children grow up. There are young people who grew up in America, who speak English, who know no other country, wondering whether they belong here or whether they will be sent somewhere they have never truly been. There are workers and nurses and caregivers and entrepreneurs wondering whether the life they have built on hard work and sacrifice means anything to the country they have given so much to. Those are the real stakes of this debate, not the political points scored in Washington, not the viral moments at the border. The real stakes are in those homes, those families, those lives. And that is why this conversation matters. That is why you need to be informed. That is why, if you live in America or care about America or care about what it means to be a human being in this world, you need to understand what is happening to Haitians in America and what the U.S. immigration policy choices of 2026 will mean for all of us. Immigration is not just a political issue. It is a moral issue. It is a question about what we value, who we include, who we exclude, and why. And the answers we give as a society will define us in ways that go far beyond any single election or any single policy decision. The story of Haitians in America is not finished. It is being written right now. And every one of us, through our choices, our voices, our votes, our willingness to be informed and engaged, is part of writing it. So here's what I want you to do before you leave. If this video gave you something to think about, if it helped you understand something you didn't understand before, then share it. Share it with someone who thinks they already know everything about immigration. Share it with someone who is frustrated and angry and doesn't know why. Share it with someone who is directly affected by these policies and needs to know they are not alone and that people are paying attention. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you want to understand better. Tell me where you agree, where you disagree, where you are uncertain. This channel exists because of those conversations, because of people who are willing to engage seriously with hard questions and refuse to settle for easy answers. Subscribe to USA Visa Explained if you haven't already. We cover the stories that matter most in U.S. immigration with the depth and the honesty that they deserve. There is so much more to come. Stories about asylum law, about visa processes, about the lives of immigrants from every corner of the world who are navigating one of the most complex and consequential systems on earth. The world is watching what America does next, and so are we. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next one.